Hello there, and welcome back to the SWTVC Podcast, the audio home of the SWTVC crew and the ongoing push for the continued existence, expansion, and success of the heritage scale of Star Wars collecting. We have a rancor-sized episode for you because we gotta talk about the Rancor. And at the time of recording this, 10:45 p.m. Mountain Time, there it is, at long last. The Rancor campaign is over, and what a wild ride it was. Despite hitting a little over 8,500 backers, it is currently being zeroed out, and the Rancor has officially not been funded, and it will not be entering production. It shall remain just a dream item and a footnote in the storied history of Star Wars collecting. Saturday morning, John and myself sat down and had an honest discussion about the Rancor and kind of running through this campaign and our thoughts on it. We weren't doing it here to spread negativity or actively root for anything to fail, as you'll hear. And I'm going to keep this brief here. I just want to say this at the top of the show, that my issues with the Rancor campaign itself, personally, were more with the implications and messaging that were signaled to us collectors by a lot of the strange choices and the handling of this entire project and campaign from concept to execution. It was never with the Rancor item itself. The Rancor, it's an impressive piece. It is an impressively designed piece. And I am truly, truly bummed for those who did want a Rancor in their 6-inch collection, and they aren't able to have it. That is, I never want someone to not have something that they want. I don't believe it's an either or game. I don't subscribe to that. I don't enjoy that concept. That said, I hope the right lessons are learned here from both Hasbro and collectors, and I hope this doesn't hurt the future of Star Wars HasLabs in general, especially considering the TVC crest is still firmly in the second place spot for most successful. I'm not here to spread negativity, but just to look at why things might or might not work. The point here I'm trying to make is that while a lot of our frustration and ire as collectors is perfectly valid, I mean, trust me, we're TVC collectors. That's the name of the game for us. The best course of action here is to now use that constructively. Let's have meaningful discussion. Let's put in the work to educate ourselves and our collecting brethren, and let's show our passion for this hobby, for Star Wars. Let's work together towards a better collecting future. Does that come in the way of fan-organized campaigns, of being specific about what we want, trying to communicate to Hasbro what we're looking for when it comes to what we're collecting? I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast. That's why SWTVC exists, to be able to try to communicate what fans of the heritage scale of 3 3/4 inch are asking Hasbro for. What Hasbro does from there, that's up to them. All we can do is try. Gist of it is, the Rancor didn't back. I personally don't think 6-inch can sustain world building things. So, I hope this was a clear message to Hasbro that if they want to do world building items like the Rancor, maybe stick to TVC for that kind of stuff. That's kind of why it was created in the first place, so that this world could be built out. Anyway, I'm so sorry for taking up so much time in this intro. I did not mean to, nor did I really want to, because I talk a lot in this episode. John and I sat down on Saturday to talk about the Rancor before it even ended, kind of where we were thinking it was going. I never expected this to happen, at least not like this. I did fully expect it to back. I expected it to hit around 9,000. I'm shocked. Like I said, I hope the right lessons were learned here. This certainly was an interesting campaign. Anyway, without further ado, here's the chat. That's the nice part about recording intros later, is we can just kind of start. Yeah, that's my favorite part. Yes. So as we record this, it is Saturday. There's 48 hours pretty much until The Rancor is either backed or not backed, and Malakili exists or doesn't exist.
Yes, I'll just say, just as an update, as we're recording, it's 2 days, 11 hours, 1 minute until it closes.
Okay,
and we are
off by 11 hours.
Yes, and we're at 59% backed, or 5,296 of 9,000 backers. And let's check in at the end of the episode.
Yeah, sounds good.
How it moves or not.
All right. Yeah, John. Actually, while you're all primed and ready with information, let's go ahead and get started and talk briefly about not only the history of this HasLab campaign, but kind of just a brief overview of bigger items in the Black Series as well. I know there's been a bit of a interesting short history for those.
Yes.
So.
I mean, all of Black Series has a somewhat short history since it launched in 2013, but 8.5 years ago now, I guess. So they, in addition to the $20 to $25 basic figure, Hasbro tried some mid-sized $40 sets in 2014 with creatures like Jawa, the Tauntaun, the Wampa, or a speeder bike. The big first item was the $180 First Order TIE Fighter in 2015. That enormous giant TIE Fighter that I have. Do you have that?
I do. And yeah.
Have, 6-7 years later, whatever it is, I still have not figured out a place to put it.
Did you pay full price for it?
I did not.
Did anyone?
I don't think so. So I was able to get it from a friend who found it for, I think, $50-ish.
Yeah.
What about you?
It still has the clearance price tag on it. I got it for like 42 and change was what it was finally marked down to. It was the last one in the Colorado area, actually. I found it by chance doing some brick seeking back in 2015 or 16, whatever that was.
So, we give the TBS crowd a lot of guff for being the clearance scale. But, we're sort of primed for that because the first giant item went on such deep clearance.
Yeah.
So after that, they kind of scaled back. They did a third of the price to $60 vehicles around 2016 with Luke and Rey's land speeders, the Dewback, an Infus Nest swoop bike. They tried $50 centerpiece statues of Vader, Luke, Kylo, Rey. And then they've had some $30 deluxe figures of sort of varying success. We all saw Moloch for years after Solo came out, or months anyway. Some of them did better. Like I think Grievous did probably okay. He was an exclusive, I think.
Yeah.
I think he was a fan channel exclusive.
Maybe. I do remember the Gamorrean Guard was hard to get that first time though. You were just about to jump into that one. And I know he was bungled product launch, one of those elusive exclusives at Target, and then became very widely available. Yeah, and then they brought him back as a fan channel exclusive. So we have not had an issue getting the Gamorrean Guard if you want one in Black Series. And put a pin in that for a few minutes later. I think you can see where this is going. Mm-hmm.
And then so sort of the last giant Black Series item was the $125 Snowspeeder with Dak Ralter, sort of to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, which I also have. Do you have that one?
I do, but as you're running through them and I'm looking at the list of them, I am realizing that I literally did not pay full price for any of these. Any of them. I got them all on some form of clearance. I think I got the Snowspeeder for $100.
Yeah.
It's
been on sale. Every so often someone will GameStop or somebody will run a sale and they're still available. Okay, good for them.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and just remind folks why it's John and I talking to you right now, as we are the resident scale traders of SWTVC, where we've both collected most, if not all, of the Black Series over the past how many years? 8 years or so. I know I was playing catch up in 2015, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, continue, John.
Well, however, do you want to do a little backstory on where we are with the Black Series in general, or save it for a little bit later?
Yeah, I'll mostly save it for Balance the Scales, which will be coming soon. But I do just want to go ahead and mention that, the Black Series did start in 2013 as a bit of like a showcase line, a supplementary sort of line. I think there were only 8 figures, 2 waves that first year. To me, it's one of those, and I've said this to you before, and in our SWTVC group chat with the guys, where I did really like the Black Series as supplementary line. It's just one of those things where I got hooked, and it keeps going and it won't end. And I keep feeling
Yeah.
compelled to buy more and more and more. And it, to the point wires got crossed that somehow this showcase line of like, making premium nice versions of core characters and whatnot in an alternate scale kind of somehow was a perfect storm of getting shuffled around in that Disney acquisition time to somehow becoming what people thought was the flagship of action figure lines. So
Yeah.
again, stay tuned for Balance the Scales. We'll delve way more deep into the history of all that. It's just kind of interesting and frustrating at times.
I'll just say briefly, I'm sort of on the same wavelength of that, of like, through the history of the line alongside the 3 3/4-inch main line, there was always little sidelines, whether it was micro collection or 12-inch or, the Epic Force 9-inch figures or
like
various
Unleashed.
things like, things that would run for a little bit and, be a cool little side collection and then end after a couple of years and say, okay, now they'll try something new.
Mhm.
I'm sure they were, throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and we're hoping for a big success. And the Black Series sort of supplanted 3 3/4 as the main focus of a lot of stuff, and we'll be getting into that more with a lot of coverage over the next month. But sort of the larger items though have struggled to justify their place at retail, from what I can tell, just like anecdotally, more than anything else.
I think that's fairly supported by most folks' experience, but
yeah, because I think, like you said, it's a good showpiece for cool main characters that look great as action figures, but when you get into the world building element, that's really something that fits best in vintage collection, which sort of brings us to in the start of the Rancor.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, as you have written, at San Diego Comic-Con, they did a Jabba's Palace display, and they've done awesome dioramas at celebrations and other conventions over the last few years. It was sort of half vintage collection Jabba's sail barge. That was a year that was releasing, or at some point after that fact. I believe this is the diorama, correct? It was like half vintage collection with Jabba's sail barge and the skiffs, and then half Jabba's Palace, which was Black Series. It was a very sparse Jabba's Palace because we still have, they're only now getting Bib Fortuna in 6-inch.
And the Luke that they used too was what they just used scissors to cut some little pieces of fabric to make him look like the Jedi Knight Luke.
Because his Death Star 2 sort of post-indoor look was released in one of the early waves, and then but they didn't have a Jedi Knight Luke. But they did include a giant Rancor in that display. It was no articulation, but now if you look at photos, it seems to be the grandfather of this current Rancor.
Yeah,
same or very similar sculpt.
Just some slightly different placing of articulation points, really.
Yes. So I'm sure they got a lot of cool feedback of people saying, "Oh my gosh, that looks awesome." Does that translate to people actually wanting it? I personally didn't see a lot of people asking for a Rancor in Black Series. I don't really follow Black Series as closely as I do Vintage Collection. I don't know if you have the same experience.
I don't think I ever saw anyone genuinely ask for a Rancor in the Black Series. I know personally that was never anything I had even had on my radar. At all. I've even dragged my feet. I just got the Legacy Collection one, the 2012-ish, really somewhere in there, 2013-ish, for 3 3/4-inch, and love it. But again, since it was older, it wasn't really on my priority thing, but my fervor for having a Rancor, of course, was reignited by this whole campaign, but I didn't want the one that they were currently offering.
Yeah. So. And I guess that's a good place to jump in and say there have been several Rancors in the 3 3/4 scale, 3.75-inch scale over the years. There was the vintage Kinner one, of course. There was the Power of the Force 2 one in 1998 with Luke and Bone, same wave as a Bantha with a Tusken Raider. And then in 2008 for the Force Unleashed, they sculpted a brand new, the Jungle Rancor from Felucia with a Felucian rider. And then that was sort of like a pre-paint. So they did a Jabba's Palace version around 2008, 2009 Legacy Collection. There's a sort of lighter colored version and a darker version. And then they repacked that with a new Jabba and a couple other figures in the 3 3/4 Black Series as a Toys R Us exclusive in 2014 or 15-ish. So we are good on Rancors in 3 3/4 scale, so I guess it was time for 6-inch to give it a go. Yeah.
It's not so much that I don't want people to have things offered in 6-inch. It's just that I don't quite understand some of the things. I don't understand the Rancor in 6-inch, if that makes sense. But that's my own personal thought on it.
I mean,
I don't know.
As a collector of both scales, I mean, it's definitely a been there, done that situation since we have so many in 3 3/4. You know, we've been there, we've done that a little bit. If you collect both scales.
So then, and then what? June 9th, was that when the I Am Your Father's Day live stream was? That's when Hasbro announced the first ever Black Series HasLab that was going to be coming this year, 2021. I think, was it Patrick that said, quote, "Vehicles work great for the vintage collection in HasLab. We've done the Barge, we've done the Razor Crest, but this Black Series HasLab will not be a vehicle." Was that Patrick? Or
it was indeed, yes.
Okay, cool.
So, which kind of shows, I don't know if that was acknowledging the fact that vehicles don't typically do that great in Black Series, but it also kind of narrows down the list of what it's going to be if you assume that they're following the format of a giant item that they couldn't sell at retail, that they might not be able to sell at retail otherwise. So it's kind of like, okay, you start thinking, do I have space for this? Is there something that I really want? It's probably the Rancor.
Yeah.
Which was confirmed a short time later, about a month later.
Yeah, July 15th, right?
Yeah, on one of the fan site Q&As following another event, I believe, somebody was asking about international availability for HasLab. So Patrick was kind of running down the history of them, and it was a total slip of the tongue. We're all human. At least I think I am. But he said, it's TBD for it's TBD for future HasLab items. Again, it's evolving quickly. So we'll see even for the Rancor. Then you kind of saw the light fade from his eyes. Yeah. Sorry, for the Black Series item that's launching whenever that may be, we'll see what we do with that. And then he tried to walk it back at the end by saying, I think at the start of the interviews, I mentioned a character in regards to HasLab. Honestly, just thinking of a different item. We've gone through so many characters, don't want any fans to get their hopes up. We are excited for that project. We're going to reveal that later, but we're not trying to break any news that doesn't actually exist. God bless him for trying. Nobody bought that for a second.
No.
It's unfortunate, when you're talking, I'm sure we've said stuff that we didn't, mean to say or whatever.
The beauty of doing this not live most of the time. It's easy to cut.
Yeah, now you know why we edit this show. So there you go.
Yeah. Was it what the next day that they announced it proper on StarWars.com?
There was no need to report that to him until they had something to report. And the very next day they had something to report when they officially announced that the Rancor was coming later this year.
I felt bad during that whole thing. Especially, with the whole, I don't want to get any fans to get their hopes up when he said that. And, here we sit now and I look at the Rancor and I'm like, I don't think anybody got their hopes up. Sorry,
Nobody's
that's a low dig
for this, really.
But
well, yeah, I mean, we're still 2 days out and I don't think anybody's hopes are too terribly high for this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until October 22nd during PulseCon that they actually launched the campaign with digital gray images of the Rancor. The brand team, I think they had like a special event. So after they revealed a lot of stuff for TVC and TBS, the Maldo Crease packs and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they had a separate PulseCon panel right afterwards. They talked a lot about the drool, the wingspan, that there was going to be 900 deco hits.
Is it 900? For some reason, I keep getting wires crossed in my brain where I'm like 600, 800, 900, 600.
Yeah, all the 900 number is burned into my brain with, I mean, there's been a lot of numbers of the different backers and, there's supposed to be 9,000 backers. That was the set. They show the wingspan of 42 inches that, the Rancor, nobody's going to pose a Rancor in the Michael Jordan poster wingspan pose. You can if you want to, I guess. It sort of seemed like they were focusing on a lot of stuff that was very impressive from a manufacturing, design, engineering standpoint. And that's awesome for them. As a collector, I wasn't super compelled by that initial sales pitch.
Yeah.
Talking about the durometer of the legs or whatever,
Same. I mean, if I were to ever get one of these in the future, buying it off the secondary market, if it backs, I don't see myself backing it in the next couple of days. of course, I would be that guy that I would display my Rancor in a T pose all the time, but
just because you could, or you know,
just because I could. But that is kind of where I'm going with that, is that I think some of the stuff that when I look at the Rancor and I look at the mock-ups, like, yes, it is impressively engineered and designed. I almost wonder if it was just kind of over engineered. If that makes any sense, but that's something we can get into later when we're talking about price and all that.
Sure. Well, yeah. So that was the first time we saw it. So we started to have these sort of questions about, did they need to do it like that? But at the same time, I don't have the exact quote, but I believe they said they would reveal the first tier when it backed.
As has been protocol for all Star Wars HasLabs, pretty much.
Yes.
Well, the previous one being the Rancor, the barge doesn't count.
Or the previous being the Razor Crest, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Razor Crest.
We'll kind of look at how they did different tiers, but so they did not hold to this, obviously, because just quickly I'll say the Razor Crest backed, within about 26 hours. This one did not. Let's just say that it is still not backed.
5142.
Yes. Yes, that was as high as it got.
Yeah, on November 5th, I think was it?
Yeah, I think that was as high as it got because so didn't wait till it got backed. They needed to sort of get people excited for it, which is fine. I think the tiers are as much a marketing move as an action, to keep it in the fan conversation, to keep it in the news or whatever, to kind of continue it through the campaign so it doesn't I think like the Sentinel backed within the first day, within pretty quickly, maybe not the first day, but very quickly. So then some of these campaigns, they have to then sort of find ways to keep it still exciting and interesting. Yeah. Or to make it exciting and interesting to begin with. Well,
and who could have really foreseen them kind of needing to do that after how the previous HasLab had performed. And when they look at it, they're probably just looking at it as Star Wars HasLab, not necessarily Black Series, Black Series and Vintage Collection, even though they really hyped up that this is the first Black Series HasLab. I think to the people who count the beans, it was, it's just Star Wars. They'll be fine.
Yeah. So the last one did great.
Yep.
So they did reveal the first tier on November 5th in a live stream. That was when they had the designers talking about it, and they had more, digital model images of the Rancor and the Stormtrooper.
It was Jing and Eric talking about it.
Yes. Yeah. They were really showing their Star Wars bona fides, talking about how much they love the scene with the Stormtrooper and the Rancor.
Yeah, sorry, I posted a fun photo of that. Not in a mean way, just I was having my Rancor, my 3 3/4 inch Rancor, eating some Stormtroopers. That iconic scene from Return of the Jedi.
We all love and remember as it definitely happened. But they were leading into revealing the Rancor, the Gamorrean guard for the Rancor, which was that scene where the guard was eaten by the Rancor, which is fine. But like we said, it was a figure that was available 2 times previously, once at Target, once in the fan channel. But what's new here is the cardboard, which we will be discussing a lot of cardboard today. It's on a Power of the Force card, much like the Yak face from the sail barge. It's the first 6-inch Power of the Force card with a coin. Weirdly, I think you might have pointed out the dimensions are much taller.
I think it's got to be I think the card, if it is as the mock-up shows, with those proportions, the card has got to be 14 some inches tall. So
yeah, because for all the other 6-inch vintage Kenner cards, they sort of changed the not dimensions, but they changed the scale, I guess you would say, of the figure. The figure sits larger on the card than it does on the vintage collection or Kenner figures. Proportionally speaking, the figure takes up more of the card.
Yeah, and they kind of move things around just a little bit so that it can accommodate that.
Yeah, and I guess for the coin, but now I think they could have done it similar to the first round of A New Hope figures where they had the logo to the side.
Yep.
And then they could have just had the coin above the figure and it would have looked better because they got rid of the special collector coin call out from the original Power of the Force line. So now it's just a big black empty nothingness, a void.
Yeah, there's some from a design standpoint, the cardback adaptation is oddly faithful, but still doesn't work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At least it doesn't work in the 6-inch scale, but it looks nice. It does via the mock-ups. I think it looks neat.
Yeah. So. And I think as a vintage collector, it was a little bit of a kick in the groin to, see Power of the Force coins and cards that we've been wanting in vintage collection in 6-inch scale. I mean, we got the Yak face, so this is kind of a similar thing, but it's like...
And the droids cards this year, too.
Yeah, and the droids, they're getting the coin this year, so it was a little bit like, we want that, but it's not really the right scale, so it feels like they're trying to bring in 3 3/4 collectors for this.
Yeah, very much so, of kind of continuing of really trading on the, hey, you guys remember 3 3/4 inch? Well, that still exists, but don't buy that.
Yeah.
Here, we'll put some new big stuff on the same looking cards from your childhood. Woo!
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, is that what we're doing?
I mean, TVC obviously trades on a lot of nostalgia too, but it's like, it seems like a better extension of that line. I don't know.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, because, like you said, extension and, sorry, not to really derail too hard into this one, but bring me 10 Black Series collectors that actually care about card backs, and I will, not believe you. Because I don't think that many exist. I've run some informal little polls with like 100 to 200 people participating, and the overwhelming majority, I don't have the number in front of me right now, was really not. They just want the figures. They don't care about the card backs. It's not part of the experience for most folks who tend to collect Black Series anecdotally.
Yeah. But I mean, they've been putting Black Series figures on the vintage Kinder cards for anniversaries and the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm.
Well, started for anniversaries and then credit collection, and
yes.
Yeah, so
it kind of exploded over the last 2 years. Yeah, so this was a little bit like, and this is also coming off of, you have a lot of great balance of scales info we'll be getting into later over the course of the month or so. But as much as we, as vintage fans, talk about so many repacks, the Black Series also has a ton of repacks.
Yeah.
Many on those anniversary cards. So for the first goal out of the gate to be another repack, not that other HasLabs have had all new tooling for every single tier, but it was a little bit like, this is the best you can do. It makes sense to have the Gamorrean with the Rancor, so, if you don't have it already, I don't know who doesn't already have it and would be backing this anyway, but it makes sense as part of the package. So
it's kind of like, I wish they would have flexed their creative muscle a little bit, because this is an opportunity to really go wild with the Black Series, like make something iconic, aesthetically for the Black Series, like kind of experiment with what you can do instead of necessarily just kind of retreading 3 3/4 inch ideas and the nostalgia there. Find ways to
totally,
give the Black Series its own stamp, which they really, I will give them this. They've done a good job of that with the packaging since the 2020 revamp last year with the murals, and, each media property has its own numbering system.
Yeah. I like that.
Love that. I love that. I love how they look. I love the continuity there with how you can choose to display your murals. So
it's its own unique stamp, footprint, whatever you want to call it. Instead of, just co-opting the 3 3/4 scale.
Yeah.
So that the Gamorrean didn't really move the needle a whole lot. So 10 days later, I think it was just a social media post, right, for tier 2.
Yes.
And at this point, we were saying it was about 5,142 backers.
Yeah, that was when it had tipped. That was how I think high it got, was that November 15th day.
Yeah. So then they revealed tier 2, which was the quote-unquote world-building backdrop, which was a cardboard cutout of the Rancor pit, and a couple of bones.
It's a big cardboard backdrop.
Yes, it's very large. That's my reaction to that reveal. We've been getting more cardboard stuff in vintage collection as well. As part of the Navarro Cantina, I'm not super thrilled that the door is cardboard, but whatever.
And the window.
I think the window looks okay as sort of, not to compare it to my theme park nerdy side real quick, but when you have a screen on a ride as the main attraction, it's kind of like, that sucks. But when it's like part of the attraction, that's cool. It adds to it, Yeah. So it's the same thing with cardboard. When you try to get me excited for a giant cardboard backdrop, it's not going to happen.
As many people said very loudly, it's one of those like, oh, that's not just part of the box. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
It feels like it could have been a cool thing just as like, oh, here's an extra little thing you get. Okay, sweet. But like as something to sell it, as a selling point to get excited about, maybe not so much. Maybe not the best move they could have done.
Yeah.
And the bones are neat, but again, since the Rancor didn't have any accessories whatsoever and as the base offering, I don't know.
My question is, one, what is Ula's headdress made out of that it survives a Rancor's digestive tract? Two, when did a Rancor eat a tauntaun? Three, how did it? Why is? Anyway, questions for Pablo Hidalgo.
Yes, let's tweet at him. Let's get that conversation going.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be a book about it at some point. So 2 days later, we got those sort of maternity photos of Eric and the proud papa and his baby Rancor, which were nice. I think that was the first time we actually saw it, the physical model, correct?
It was, yes.
And that's when we saw the it's an all ages show. We'll call it the turtle head sort of articulation, where they chose to. I think the head is everything's proportionally accurate for the most part. I think the feet are a little too big, whatever. But they chose to cut the articulation on the head, basically like on the face. I mean, the Rancor is a weird thing. It's a potato bear, as they've called it. They cut the articulation in front of the ears. So like his face is articulated, not his head, if that makes any sense.
His face moves, but then his ears, or like the little earring and all that, stays static. And
so it's gonna look strange in outside of any pose except for just like standing straight forward. And it also has like a giant gap between the head and the body, like he's wearing a big hoodie or something, or like he's Palpatine. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was just,
I get what they were going for, because that's kind of like how the McFarlane like King Shark was engineered, is that his head pops into into a socket thing and moves around in there.
Sure.
But I think, with the Rancor, it's just that articulation socket is too far forward.
Yeah. I think because there's even like a wrinkle on his head or whatever, if they move it back one, little ridge on his back, I think it would have been a lot better. That's sort of the articulation point they had on the Legacy version.
Yeah.
And to me, it looks a lot better. So I don't know. And then, so November 19th, this is it. This is the last thing we're going to do.
And let's keep in mind here that this is all the cards on the table now. And the thing is halfway backed.
Yes. And so after the tier 2, the cardboard and the bones, a lot of people dropped it. It was about 200 to 300 people dropped it, I believe, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm sure some added, but the net loss was about 300-ish.
Net loss was around 300. We need to be going up, not down. So
yeah, so they had to do a quick emergency final live stream to do the final 2 tiers and the deco, which again was kind of met by a big shrug.
Well, that, and also that they did that live stream and it was very much like watching people in a house fire going like, oh, everything's fine. What are you talking about?
Right. Not that they need to give into certainly never the anger or the hate of, the comments, but there was a clear and loud dissatisfaction with the way that this was going, I think you could say.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just saying that is because this is a vintage collection podcast, but
of course, of course we're biased.
Yes. But it was fairly obvious from taking a look at the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet's always angry, but so should we talk about the deco first? They've been hyping up the 900 hits of deco for a month.
The fact that I've forgotten the 900 part just shows that I stopped listening after the first one. I don't think I watched the any other live stream. I just saw the photos and pictures and talk afterwards. I was that apathetic about it all. But yeah, the 900 deco hits was like the only talking point that they're like, it's big. Yeah. It's got a ton of paint. Also, did we mention it's huge? And also there's going to be like a lot of deco on it. And it's also giant, and it's going to have 900 deco hits. And you should see how big this thing is. It's got a wingspan of 42 inches. And then it also has a ton of paint on it, and it's giant. I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And yeah, real quick, while you mentioned how big it is, as a sidebar, in this live stream, the only thing they compared it to was the Razor Crest, which we don't have in hand. We paid for it last year. Still don't have it. That's fine. There's a global shipping crisis. Also, we bought too many of them, apparently, so that's our fault for having it delayed.
That's the part that I wish they just would have kept to themselves. They said the quiet part out loud. They could have just come up with an excuse like, we had some last minute tweaks to the packaging or something. I would have rather been lied to, as opposed to just like, well, you thought we were done with this, but once again, caught with our pants down. We have to make too many of them. So
so you're being punished because you wanted this too much.
Yeah. So.
But so comparing it never to an in-person figure, never to a Gamorrean guard, a Luke, a Jabba, anything, they compared it to a Razor Crest, an item that nobody has in their hands that is in a different scale, which means absolutely nothing to me. I have no idea how big it is. I have no idea what it looks like on my shelf.
Yeah.
Not a great move. So as back to the deco, you can 900, 9,000, whatever. It's all brown. It's a big old potato bear. God bless him.
Yeah.
And then you can say, I guess the maquette that they used was a little darker than the final model in the actual film. And it looks a little dark. It looks fine. It looks a little glossy like a lot of the Black Series stuff lately. I don't see the huge value in the deco itself. I'm sure, again, from an engineering, design, manufacturing standpoint, I'm sure they did a killer job. Yeah. From a collector standpoint, it looks like a Rancor.
Yeah.
It's the most decoed Black Series figure ever. It's all brown. It's 50 shades of brown, as we've said.
Well, and you say that too also at the deco. This is at the same time when people are also yelling about how deco isn't just an excuse for premium costs in the collector's eyes. For a collector like Cobb Vanth is going to be released at a $30, $35 price point. Not because he has any extra accessories or anything, but purely because of extra deco that I'm not quite sure anybody's really noticing. So that's cool. But just, on the Hasbro side, engineering side, awesome. That makes sense. That's very cool. As a consumer and a collector, just looking at some of these things and then looking at the price tags, it's kind of just like, I don't see it. So
it's hard for us to see as the end consumer, I guess. So tier 3 was a Salacious B. Crumb.
Oh, that one chapped me bad.
Yes. Because you can talk about that a bit if you like.
Yeah, so what that was, based on the card that they did in 2011, the San Diego Comic-Con set, the Revenge of the Jedi set, the Elusive Death Star with there was 14 figures and 2 mini cards. And that was the only place you could ever get that carded Salacious Crumb and Mouse Droid, and they were also numbered 66 and 67. Needless to say, 66 and 67 are the only holes in my carded TVC collection because I don't have $2,500 to plop down on that set, or the $500 to $800 for just the little figures themselves. Then the Black Series did get Salacious Crumb with Jabba in, was that 2014? Also San Diego Comic-Con exclusive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then here.
So,
and also one that is wink, not Salacious Crumb, but identical, is packed into a $30, $40 creature pack right now.
So that was revealed,
that they revealed during this thing.
Yeah, during the same time they revealed the Rancor. Yeah, and it went up for sale literally 2 days before they revealed the Salacious Crumb set. So you can spend $35 if you didn't get the 2014 Jabba the Hutt set, which I'm sure many didn't, and we're looking for Salacious Crumb or a Kowakian monkey lizard that looks exactly like him.
I don't have him actually. I don't have that set. So
I did get that set, so I'm one of the lucky few. But he had his legs. He had articulation, but no knees and no ankles. So they added new legs for the Galaxy's Edge set. And they did the first ever yellow and blue parrot sort of colors monkey lizard, which is great. And I still want it in 3 3/4 inch.
Same.
But the fact that they had it available and then 2 days later we're hyping it as a big reason to back this $350 Rancor when you can buy one for literally a tenth of the price.
Yeah, as a repack.
With a bunch of other creatures. Yeah.
On a card that Black Series collectors really didn't care about.
Yes, and it also doesn't, because it's a Return of the Jedi card, not a Power of the Force card, so it doesn't fit with the Gamorrean or the next figure, which was Tier 4, which was a character that we have never seen in Black Series before, certainly not 1,000 times already, is Luke Skywalker. Can you believe it? We got a new Luke Skywalker.
This direct from the Hasbro. I'm not even reading this right now. I just remember it when I was looking at it last night. For the first time in 8 years, we're bringing you Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, all new. And it's like, you know, the one that they mocked up using the 2014 Blue Line Jedi Knight Luke for the 2019 display, where they kind of had the original Rancor maquette in that display. That was just a little bit, they were working on a partial tool to bring Return of the Jedi Knight Luke to the Black Series, which they did successfully.
Yes.
They made a really nice figure. It is proportional. It has good articulation. The head sculpt that they did is pretty good. I like it.
His cheeks are a little rosy, but that's nothing, you know, a repack can't solve.
Yeah, and that also happened to General Obi-Wan. Like, you know, the rosy cheeks happen. I've got rosy cheeks too. I get it. I like heroes that look like me. But then that was released as a Walmart exclusive, and we all know how Walmart exclusive go. You either see a ton of them in your area, or it never hits your area, and they kind of are hard to, you know, come by. I bought a few extras, and I actually just sold the last one that I had not too long ago.
Yeah.
A little bit before this was announced, but the aftermarket price for that figure is still the same. Like, people still want that figure, and it is a good figure. So,
and wasn't it available again around his appearance in Mando? I think like right before or right after they pulled one of those wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, it was like a little fan channel. Like, we got you. Yeah, it popped into Walmart briefly because I think they got another round of that, and then Force Ghost Yoda, which they can't get rid of. So,
so much like the Gamorrean, it's a solid fig. I mean, it's not that hard to get this figure, the one that exists. So to have an all new tooling,
not at all.
So, you know, and people were calling out for the other characters that interact with the Rancor, Malakili, Ula, especially.
Yeah.
But then, you know, HasLab's not the place for 100% newly tooled figures unless it's at the very end of the, you know, stretch goal mark when they make a ton of money from this.
There's a little extra money to pull from.
So it was just a little weird because, again, that Luke is perfectly fine. Maybe he doesn't have the pinless joints. That's really about it that the current one is missing. I didn't need an all new one. I don't think nobody's asking for it.
Well, you know,
there's been so many Lukes over the last few years.
So many. And again, this, by them revisiting something that they've already done fairly definitively so soon, like within less than 2 years, pretty much.
Yeah.
And they're making it as an all new sculpt that takes up the slot of something actually new that people are actually asking for from relevant media. And also, I know people speculate, it's so they can do Mando Luke. For me personally, if that's the case, they're doing it the wrong way, because we already have this look. It's engineer an all new one specific to Mandalorian, and if you want to make an updated Return of the Jedi one, retrofit from there, like work backwards from the Mandalorian one.
Yeah.
So that the Mandalorian one is accurate, and then they can gauge how much to spend to make it accurate to Return of the Jedi, because we all want that. Every figure collector of every line wants that Luke from the Mandalorian, which we have now. It's now been just about a year since we saw him. And I think literally just Funko is the only one that has one out. And Figure Arts just announced theirs, and nothing from Hasbro in any scale.
Yeah, and because the Figure Arts one is also not super accurate. It's just Return of the Jedi Luke with a new haircut, basically.
Exactly, and that's exactly how I think this Black Series one would turn out if indeed they are using this new Return of the Jedi one to build a Mando one out, is that it's going to just be, it's Return of the Jedi Luke with a black cloak and a different haircut.
Yeah. And I'm sure, because a lot of this is planned for 2023, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of various carded and boxed and multi-pack versions of Jedi Luke, which is fine, which is perfect. Again, the existing one is fine. I don't know why they needed to waste the tooling money. They always act like the tooling budget is coming out of their personal paychecks.
Yeah. It's like, hey, can we have like an extra new figure every year? And they're just like, then we'd starve.
Yeah. So. But here's another Black Series Luke, even though the current one is fine.
Yeah, here, enjoy.
So again, on a Power of the Force card, which again, we already talked about that. So I'll just say it's similar to the sort of the Galactus HasLab, which I believe was the most it sold the most units out of any HasLab. The Razor Crest was over 28,000. Galactus was about 31,000. And that had figures for the first 3 stretch goals, which, even though the first 2, Nova and the Silver Surfer, use existing or upcoming tooling, kind of just generic male and female bodies that they can reuse a million times that Marvel Legends does. And then they did a Morg figure, which looks to be all new. So it's sort of following the pattern of a couple of repacks and then a brand new sculpt.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if they'll release Marvel Legends later. We're already, far away from Vintage Collection on this podcast, but so we're not getting too far into Marvel Legends. But so I don't know if they looked at the success of that and said, okay, we'll do a couple of repacks and a new one, and people will get excited and people will love it. That's what worked. That's what the market data shows.
Well,
I don't know.
That whole Galactus campaign, even though for a while it was kind of looking like it wouldn't quite get there. The whole campaign, though, looking back on it, I remember I was constantly seeing ads for it. I was always seeing hype for it. And by the grace of God, Mr. Stevie, good old Steve Evans, being his hype man self. And even I was tempted to back Galactus because of how genuinely passionate everyone involved with it was. And then everything they revealed for it only added to fan excitement, only got people more hyped. Whereas the Rancor has been the opposite of, it's just like, oh, I guess we gotta do this. Let's kick the dust off an old idea. And then here's some tiers that don't necessarily make that much sense. So,
yeah, I'll say with the tiers, because they didn't have tiers when they did the sail barge, they added a yak face halfway through, which was a figure that was already coming in the main line. Mm-hmm. They added the Power of the Force coin card and a little cup, which I think is the same sculpt as the cups from the R2-D2 sail barge figure. I'm not 100% sure. I did not open that figure.
Same.
And I will not open that figure. But when they did the Razor Crest, to me personally, it felt like the initial base offering was worth the $350 they were asking. The vehicle itself, it was clear that a lot of love and effort and thought had been put into that. It came with Mando, a figure that you need, even though I'm sure we all had it already, but it had the cloth cape as part of the base offering. It had the awesome weapons rack. It had all the different deco hits. We didn't see the deco hits, but you kind of knew what it would look like and say, okay, this looks, it's going to look awesome.
Yeah, we didn't need the painted render or anything.
Yeah.
We knew what it would look like. So.
Yeah, it was an exciting, never before done item from a hot new Star Wars property that we were all excited about, that we are still excited about, and would still love more figures to go with.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the tiers were not amazing. Let me pull them up real quick.
First was the first tier, the escape pod.
Yeah, and that sort of felt like it should be part of the base offering already.
Well, yeah, not only that should be part of the base offering, but like, oh, is that going to be a thing that we see?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
No. And then the second unlocked was a version of the Child with the end of season 1 hover pram in vac metal, which is cool.
And at the time, Grogu had not existed in Vintage Collection.
Yeah, now we know that it's going to have an exclusive head and arm, so it's adding a little bit of newness to the figure. New exclusive card, exclusive early season 1 or end of season 1 pram.
Oh my god!
Awesome.
Okay, there were 5
unlock
tiers.
3.
Okay.
Yes, I have it up right now. But
okay,
so unlock 3 was the 4 carbonite blocks, which was, again, that was like, we have the hooks for them in the vehicle. We know they're coming somehow. It was still great to see them included. Number 4 was the display stand, which sort of similar to the Slave 1 display stand, I guess. Just another nice option to show it. Nobody needed it, but it's nice to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final unlock was the Off-World Jawa Elder, which I think that was before the Off-World Jawa regular version was shown, but it has an exclusive.
It was, but
knife,
it was
necklace.
Kind of implied.
Yeah. And so they talked about how the accessories were exclusive and the card back was exclusive. A knife, a necklace, the open egg. So and it's not a ton of
it's all accessory newness for the most part. With all the HasLab, with both of the TVC HasLabs are figures that were coming or that were already planned, either with minor tweaks in the case of Grogu, or with exclusive accessories and different packaging.
Yeah,
that's about it. It doesn't set the world on fire there.
Yeah, because like I said, the base offering already felt awesome. These are nice bonuses to have. I'm certainly glad to have the Elder Jawa and this end of season 1 Grogu and that stuff. If the vehicle didn't have it, I would still be thrilled with just the Razor Crest.
Yeah.
The Rancor on the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Sorry. I just want to mention too, where let's also let it be known and remember that when the Razor Crest was announced, it was 2 tier unlocks were all they had planned straight from their mouths. They said, that's it. Just 2 tiers. Blew through them so fast.
Yeah. Before they could even reveal them.
Yeah. And then they were playing catch up. Even, when I was on the previous episode with, Sarah Reynolds, she was talking about how during that they were boom, 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 trying to like come up with stuff and just do whatever they could to add and sculpt and create tiers and all that stuff that, trying to listen to the demand and then realizing like, oh my God, we were not ready for this. And which is kind of like, why weren't you, how did you not see this? But anyway, I think, and then the off-world Jawa was at 17K or was that 15 or 17?
It was, I'm not actually sure.
Okay. And then that was the final one, but then the numbers continued to just smash through. And we're like, hey, any chance of maybe another tier unlock as you continue to rake in the dough? Radio silence, no advertising. And then it ended and we still haven't gotten it. So,
and at the beginning of the campaign, it was the infamous quote of, I'm only paraphrasing here, but I'm sure we all have it tattooed somewhere on our bodies, but willing to bet that by the time this thing ships, we'll have many of the characters that interact with the ship in the Vintage Collection.
Yeah.
Which, we got IG-11 since then. We're getting Queel very soon. Still don't have Season 1 Grief. Still don't have Heavy Mando. Still don't have Q90 or any of the prisoner transport characters. We don't have Frog Lady. We're getting things.
We still don't have Boba Fett, who also interacts with it in Season 2.
Yeah. We're getting, the Ice Spiders, which is awesome, and Maldo Kreese Mando and stuff like that. But they're not exactly bending over backwards to, celebrate the smashing success of the Razor Crest with a bunch of new items in Vintage Collection. Like we sort of hoped they would. We hoped it would send a clear message that there's a lot of demand for Vintage Collection, a lot of demand for Mandalorian, a lot of demand for new media stuff in Vintage Collection, which I thought was pretty clear from the success of the Razor Crest.
Yeah.
But they do not reward success. They only reward failure. So the Rancor got one final reveal on November 30th, which was the Ranco Keeper, a figure that everyone was saying should have been included from the get-go, which seemed like if we don't get it now in Black Series, they're probably never going to do it.
Yeah.
Black Series is often it's not the place for larger items. It's not the place for vehicles, creatures, any world building stuff, really. But if you're going to have an item like the Rancor, it sort of needs the very few characters that interact with it. It doesn't do a lot in the movie.
Yeah, it eats Ula, it attacks Luke, it eats a Gamorrean guard, and it dies, and a fat guy cries. That's what it does. And that's not me knocking it. I love Return of the Jedi, but
it doesn't do a lot. Like, the barge is the home for dozens of characters. It's not a hugely long scene on the barge, but Leia kills Jabba. It's Luke's first showcase of him with his full Jedi powers.
Ignite the green. See the lightsaber for the first time.
Yeah, it's a lot of awesome stuff happens on and around the barge, and it's a place where as a collector for decades, you can put a lot of your figures in there. It's a home for your figures, a nerd's dollhouse, as people have said before. The Razor Crest is sort of similar. It's, you can put your Mando next to it. It's a sort of a place to build the collection around, build your display around it.
Yeah.
The Rancor doesn't have that. It has very few Jabba's Palace characters. It doesn't have Ula. It seems like, I don't know. Nobody has any clear indication if Disney or Lucasfilm won't allow that. There's always stories about they want to have a family-friendly reputation, which is fine for them. Ula is basically nude. I mean, she is nude in the film for a split second, but Malakili is basically nude anyway. So, I don't think these are not characters that they're probably likely to sell on shelf at Walmart or Target anytime soon, but they're needed for if they're trying to make it a world building thing, you have to have the 5 or 6 characters that the Rancor interacts with. It feels like that's what a lot of people were hoping to get. And then so Hasbro pulled it out of the ether. Oh, here's Malakili. He's coming. Just kidding. We're
and
sorry. He's
not only coming as a tier unlock, but just
part of the base offering.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eh,
Which,
yeah.
What do you think? What kind of message does that send, do you think?
What did I write down here? I don't think it sends a good message. The implications, I wrote down implications of Malakili here is, if he's exclusive to the HasLab only and never released in the main line, that's Hasbro admitting that the Rancor was indeed overpriced and that they can put new figures in a HasLab project if they so choose.
Yeah.
If he is released in the main line later, I think that would be to recover their costs, which I think the common number for tooling a figure is around $100,000, something around there.
Yep.
And Malakili was a last minute change to their 2023 plans. So his all new sculpt comes at the expense of something else all new, kind of like Luke does. That shows that they can also change mainline plans around the success of a HasLab. Why are we not getting more new figures that directly support and interact with the Razor Crest after how successful that was? It sends the message that positivity and passion and really just, going for it with, especially in 3 3/4 inch, that's not to be rewarded, but whining, complaining, and frankly saying some really awful stuff, which the internet was awful. I tried to stay out of it. That yields results that, and it also is like, is Black Series too big to fail for them? What are their priorities? It sends a message, one that's like, hey, fans, collectors, we hear you. If you collect 6-inch, if you only collect 3 3/4 inch, or that's where your interests lie, go away, please.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, they don't look at the success of the Razor Crest as a reason to build out a huge line around Mandalorian, but they do look at the failure of the Rancor, current, relative failure, as a reason to bend over backwards and get a new figure in there. And then that sort of opens the floodgates. And then a few days later, for the concurrently running G.I. Joe Sky Striker HasLab, they somehow were able to add 3 new figures to that as well, because that's also kind of floundering.
Yeah.
It's strange. Like we try to be positive, we try to have happy beeps, and we try to, say what we want about the line. And I know this has come across as negative, but it's been a little disheartening, this campaign, on a number of levels.
I'm not here to, sit here and say anybody needs to be fired or, screw these people or whatever.
No,
that's not at all any part of what I'm trying to get across here. And, like you said, John, SWTVC, we're always trying to have calm, collected discussion and education and find ways to constructively unify and, politely nudge Hasbro in directions of what fans are asking for, of, what we're at, trying to move the needle. And we are not getting that still, even despite how, we have been trying to mobilize positive, constructive efforts. I don't know, but this does show that, the fact that they threw this in and it's like, oh, we hear you. It's like, okay, so you had no idea what you were doing when you were planning this out.
Yeah.
Like, this was a no-brainer. And if it was such a no-brainer, why did it take the majority of the campaign and a lot of embarrassment to get that going? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, very much sends nothing but wrong mess. I'm glad that they're doing Malakili. I'm glad they came to their senses, and that is part of this HasLab Rancor because it's important. The way that this all shook out is what I have the problem with.
Yes, it feels like they're propping up Black Series as it's failing, as one project is failing anyway, and still refusing to look at the success of Vintage Collection. That's what it feels like. Might not be the reality. I'm sure they would, they are doing this for the G.I. Joe. I'm sure they would do this if a Vintage Collection HasLab was failing in the same way that this is. I mean, the yak face might have been a way to goose the numbers for the sail barge, but it, feels like it's not sending a great message.
No, and that also during a time is, and I said this to you yesterday, John, but it kind of feels like right now we're in a bit of a perfect storm of apathy and kind of carelessness and not really understanding. That's not just a Hasbro problem. It's Disney to LFL to Hasbro. It just, somewhere in that chain, something happened. It's had nothing but a negative effect on what used to be a cornerstone of the Star Wars experience, action figures. Now they're just an afterthought while people count money. I don't feel the passion from any of the companies involved, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different subject, but just kind of right now tying in with where the Rancor is, how it's been performing, and how they're treating this particular item. Not a fan.
Yeah. I'm crying like Malakili, frankly, over it.
Let me take my shirt off and I will also cry.
Yes. Real quick, let's check in on the Rancor as it stands now. So we started it at about an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
We checked in. Let's see. Let's pull up the app here. Active projects. Oh, it's okay. So it's crossed. It's gotten 5 backers in the last hour.
Woo!
So, okay. It's on the upward trend. It's got 5 over the last hour. That's something.
Yeah.
That's something. So I guess we'll see. I mean, we want Hasbro to do well, obviously.
Yeah.
We want Vintage Collection especially to do well.
The better they do, the better we can all do.
It seemed like a series of unfortunate events, a series of self-enforced errors that could have been avoided, frankly. I think a lot of, I don't know. Would any of us do a better job in their shoes? I don't think so. I would put Simalu in the line and tank it immediately,
All I would be releasing is, Ben Solo. So
yes.
Yeah, I would be responsible for Ollie's product for the next 10 years. So
yes. Ollie's will be very well stocked with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, just last minute, John, any 11th hour predictions for how this might shake out? Like what gut feeling? What do you think's going to happen in the next 50 hours?
I think, with some of these other HasLabs, I don't have all the numbers, but I know some of them have done well at the end. It seems highly unlikely that it's going to hit all the tier unlocks. Luke is at 19,000, which seems, it really puts the stretch goals.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it gets it. I don't know. I don't really want this item, but the classic FOMO surge of being a completist. It's caused me to really go, geez, I don't want it, but am I going to regret not having it?
Yeah.
I'm in that struggle at the moment. I need to break free. I'm sure Tyler is listening to this and going,
he's grinding his teeth to paste. Yeah, but
it's a cool item. It could have been presented a lot better. It could have been, some of the things could have been done better. I wish the brand team well. I hope it's a smashing success. In the last 2 days, to really turn the ship around, really turn this barge around.
I hope the right lessons are learned here.
Yes,
is all I'll say in terms of the Hasbro team.
My takeaway is that Vintage Collection 3 3/4 is always has been, always will be the world building scale, the scale for Star Wars. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Well, hit me with a number. Just throw a number out there, a guess of what do you think it's going to end at?
It's going to end at, currently it's going to end at,
do you think it's going to get backed? Yes. Right.
I think it's going to get back. I think it needs 9,000, right?
Yes.
Oh my God. It's going to get, let's say
tier 1 is 11,000, right? So that can hit Gamorrean Guard.
I think we're going to get the Gamorrean Guard. I would be surprised if we got anything else.
Okay. So 12,000.
That's where I'm at with it right now.
Before Malakili, I would have said 9 to 50, like 9 to 10,000. I think it still would have been backed. With Malakili, I think it's probably going to be, I would put it maybe around 12.5 or 13. 13.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what would move is Malakili that enticing to people, or is it just that's an excuse people can point at? Should have had Malakili, should have had Ula.
I'm being generous with my a big part of me thinks I don't know if this is even going to clear 10,000. I think it's I think it's going to get backed. I don't know how much, and again with confusion on international backers, I'm pretty sure it's been said that they've been factored in already. But a lot has been said about this campaign that turned out not to be true. That's true. You can't and that's the downside here, is that there's not a lot of transparency, and the information that you do get is not always stuff that you can actually trust. So
yes. I'll say one last thing in terms of the timing of this, or the fact that they're running 3 HasLabs all at once between the Ghostbusters Proton Pack, the G.I. Joe Sky Striker, and this Rancor. I bumped the microphone. A lot of the other HasLabs had their lane to play in and do really well. I will say the Razor Crest and the Hero Quest game?
Yeah.
The Quest and the Crest. Sounds like I'm saying the Wazer Quest. But those ran at the same time. The Hero Quest started 3 days earlier. Both of them were amazing successes. Maybe it was because the timing was better. Maybe because they were both products that people really wanted. Maybe because they weren't trying to relaunch a dead format in G.I. Joe O-ring figures and prop up a format that has not worked well, which is giant Black Series items. I don't know. Maybe it's because one was an action figure product, one was a gaming product, not 2 action figure products and a role play item. I don't know, but I think they would be better to have 1 or 2 very different HasLabs going at a time instead of asking for, maybe there's not a ton of crossover, maybe that's just an excuse, but if I was running the show, I would say let them each have their space, let them remain special, to get the marketing dollars behind it anyway.
Yeah, I'd say at least
what I say about that.
At least 31 days of the 45-day window, no other projects running.
Yeah. And also, if you have a second HasLab from the same brand, maybe ship the last one before you start a new one. That might be something to think about.
Yeah, the Sentinel was starting to ship a little before, during, and I think people are still getting them.
Yeah, it was sort of, I think, during the end of Galactus, but it was like, please buy a second enormous purple action figure man.
But it wasn't like
your first one.
Yeah, but they weren't like, oh, and the reason that you don't have your Sentinel yet is because we have to make too many of them because you guys wanted them too much. So,
yes,
I don't know. I will say, though, I do believe that if a TVC HasLab launched tomorrow, it would be backed within the first couple days. So,
yes,
regardless of other HasLabs going, there is demand.
I agree.
So, all right. Well,
I should go.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you. Well, that was John and I's chat about the Rancor, but we're only 2 out of 5 members of SWTVC. A couple of the other guys, Lewis and Tyler, did send their thoughts along. So, I'm going to go ahead and just throw their unfiltered thoughts at you as well, because this is a team effort. First up will be Tyler, obviously, and also obviously the British one is Lewis. So here you go.
So, trying to be objective, if I were a TBS collector, I have to agree that I would not see a $350 value in the Rancor alone. I just don't see it. When I compare that to the Razor Crest and all of the detail and the removable panels and just everything on that ship is just gorgeous and beautiful. And then I look at the Rancor, and to me, it just screams like giant hunk of plastic with articulation. Like it's got a lot of articulating points, but aside from it being an engineering marvel, maybe I just don't see the appeal. And certainly to me, that doesn't justify a $350 price tag by itself. And so therefore, for the TBS community, the tier unlocks or the stretch goals, whatever you want to call them, were the make or break factor in this campaign. Unlike for, the Razor Crest, where the Razor Crest was backed in just over a day, and all of the tiers were just kind of nice bonuses. And even then, they weren't all that spectacular either. I especially had issues with the bounty carbonite blocks being added as a tier unlock when they had already engineered clips into the ceiling of the Razor Crest. So that was just weird. But anyway, the tiers were the make or break factor on this, and the tiers were a bust by all accounts. Most people were not impressed. So now let's get into the holiday season as is it a legitimate factor or is it an excuse? I mean, I think certainly for some people, that was the deciding factor. The fact that this wraps up, only a couple weeks before Christmas, when people are trying to save for Christmas presents or to travel or, whatever, definitely was the deciding factor in some people electing not to back the Rancor. At the same time, though, it was apparently not a problem for the Razor Crest campaign. I mean, 28,000 plus Razor Crests were backed with the exact same price tag. I alone backed 3 of them. I know many people backed multiple of them. So the holiday season was apparently not an issue for the Razor Crest campaign. It seems to be an issue for this one, though. And I think that speaks to a difference between the two communities. I think that the Black Series community, a lot of them are not diehard, collect them all sort of people. A lot of them are kind of casuals. They pick and choose what they want to buy. And that kind of makes sense given, number one, their price tag. They are a pricier line of figures. And number two, there's the space factor. They simply take up more space than 3.75 inch figures and vehicles and whatnot, obviously because of the scale. So those are both factors. Also, people who collect 6-inch figures might collect other lines. And that's where you run into the problem of 3 HasLab campaigns running concurrently, which I don't think is a good idea. I think that a genuine, legitimate criticism is that they should not have run 3 HasLab campaigns concurrently. I do think that was a poor decision. So that is one aspect in which I would agree with the Black Series community that was not a wise choice. These things should be spread out throughout the year. Hasbro, the franchise teams, the brand teams for each of the franchises should be communicating with each other to ensure that these campaigns do not all run at the same time. That's just not a smart idea. Also, I saw someone make the point that I actually agree with, that a better idea to run these campaigns would be during tax return season, as opposed to running them right before the holiday season, where people have potentially other more important priorities for their finances, and they can't justify spending $350 to $500 on a crazy dream item right before Christmas or whatever. So yeah, running it during tax return season, when people get their tax returns and they suddenly have a chunk of change with disposable income, that would be a better time to run these campaigns. I definitely have to agree with that. That being said, clearance vultures, meaning people who do not want to pay full price for things because they have arbitrarily decided that item X or item Y is overpriced according to their own minds with no actual data or evidence to the contrary, is a problem in both scales. Clearance vultures are a problem in both scales. Both scales, both communities, that being 3.75 and 6-inch, of course, have toxic people in their communities that deliberately wait to buy things on clearance. And when you have people that deliberately don't buy things at full price, that hurts the line. Like straight up, there's no other way to put it. That hurts the line. And I think that's one of the contributing factors to why we did not see a newly tooled vehicle in the vintage collection this year. Because from Hasbro's perspective, they offer the ITT or, the Imperial Combat Assault Tank, and they tell you what the price is, and people are like, no, it should cost X amount of money instead. And so they deliberately wait for it to be discounted. And that makes it a lot less likely that Hasbro is going to offer newly tooled vehicles and stuff like that. And that was a problem with this campaign too. While I would agree that the Rancor by itself is not worth $350, people were, the prices that people were throwing out there that this thing should apparently cost instead were just ludicrous. I mean, I saw people saying $100, $120, $150. Like, that's just so ludicrously absurd. It's unbelievable. I mean, that's not based in any kind of reality to suggest that, it should be discounted by that much. Also, HasLabs don't discount based on community reactions. They're not gonna drop the price. That's not how this works. It's pretty unprecedented that they added Malakili in as part of the base offering. That was unprecedented, and a newly tooled figure to be added as an extra incentive to this campaign is unprecedented, and I think sets a very bad precedent. And many others in the community have said the same. So that's nothing new. This isn't just my opinion. This is, the general consensus from a lot of big names, Bantha Skull being one of them. I think that 6-inch is simply not the world building scale. There's only one world building scale, and that's 3.75. And it's been that way for decades. 3.75 was the chosen scale back in the 70s because it works perfectly for offering vehicles and beasts and play sets and dioramas that are not too big, not too expensive. They don't take up too much space. It's the perfect size for world building. It always has been. That's why that scale was chosen to be the size that it was. When you magnify things to 6-inch scale, it just becomes too big. It just becomes too expensive. And, they have tried time and time again to make 6-inch a bigger and more expensive world building scale, and it just doesn't work. They keep trying to reinvent the wheel, and I don't understand it. You've had the world building scale for decades. Stick to world building in the scale that was exclusively made for that purpose. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. It just doesn't work, and it fails every single time. Now, that being said, looking at the campaign, the numbers are still climbing. It's coming up on 6,000 backers soon, which means that it'll be approximately 2/3 funded very soon. So there is a chance that this thing may still limp across the finish line. But as far as unlocking tiers and getting all the way to, the brand new Luke, which is unnecessary in the first place, those seem very unlikely at this point. Of course, anything can happen. These sort of campaigns are very unpredictable. There could always be a last minute FOMO surge. Anything can happen. We don't know how this is going to go, but on the trajectory that it's on right now, it looks like this thing may not be funded. And even if it is funded, tier unlocks are certainly no certainty whatsoever. It could actually be a situation where lots of people cancel in the final hours of the campaign if the tier unlocks do not look likely, because I think a lot of people I think are hoping that the tier unlocks will all be unlocked to help justify the price. And that doesn't look very likely at this point. So there could be last minute cancellations or cancellations even after it gets funded, which if there's enough cancellations, it makes you wonder if 2,000 people cancel and it drops back down to 7,000 backers, does that mean that the project will no longer go into motion because they've lost so many backers, so much money? It's an interesting question. I don't know how that would work, but that would be pretty unprecedented if it happened. That'd be pretty crazy. But even if this project is successfully backed, can this even really be considered as a success? I mean, there was so much negative, PR, so much negativity surrounding this campaign. This HasLab has driven a huge wedge between the collector base and Hasbro and the brand team. I hardly consider this a smashing success, even if it does get funded. Hasbro made a lot of mistakes. There's no doubt about that. And the Black Series community, I think, was justified in calling out the lackluster tiers and offerings in this campaign. But at the same time, I think the community also behaved terribly in a lot of respects. So while I commend them for, speaking with their wallets and voting with their wallets and not accepting mediocrity, I do commend that. And I do think that was a good thing to do. At the same time, some of the criticisms in the comments that I've seen were just really unwarranted and really nasty. And I think that it didn't reflect well on their community at all. So I would hope that the TVC community would not behave that way and would conduct themselves in a better manner than that. I expect us to do better than that. I think it sends a much stronger message to, like we did with the Razor Crest, backing it in, just over a day. That's clear demand. You want to talk about market data. They offer a Rancor, a gigantic beast, in the scale that's not the world building scale, in the scale that doesn't ask for beasts all the time. TVC, 3.75 inch collectors, we ask for beasts all the time. We have constantly and consistently asked for a Blurg and a Mudhorn since their debuts in The Mandalorian, and those requests have been just completely ignored. And it's really unfortunate. But feed the community that is asking for the items. That's the best advice that I can give Hasbro. It's just make better choices. Because I don't think the Rancor was a good choice because of the fact that Ula apparently cannot be made, and Malakili is not the greatest choice for a mainline release later. I just don't think the Razor Crest, I don't think that the Rancor was a good decision. And that being said, I don't really know what would have been a good decision for a TBS HasLab. I know a lot of people asked for a, Millennium Falcon cockpit. Is there really thousands of people who want that? Is there really thousands of people who want a 6-inch ATST? Is there really, how many people would really be willing to fork over the costs for those things? It's hard to say. So maybe the Black Series is just simply not conducive to HasLab campaigns.
Okay, so thoughts on the Rancor. Where do we start? Okay, I'll start by saying I'm recording this on Monday morning. Here in the UK, we've got 13 hours and 46 minutes left of the Rancor campaign. The UK Pulse website, for some reason, I think it finishes at midnight in the UK, which I believe is about 5 hours behind where it finishes for you guys in the US. So, 13 hours, 46 left. And we are currently at 5,679 backers. So we're pushed past that 60% backing, but it's still got some way to go. So I guess first question, would I back, or have I backed it? Or would I back it? I haven't backed. I'm not a 6-inch collector, as most of you probably know. Unlike John and Evan, I've never dipped my toe into that pool, and I have no interest, to be honest, in backing something that doesn't suit the scale of my collection. So I am coming at this from someone who sits completely outside of that collecting area. Looking in as a Star Wars fan and someone who's obviously interested in the HasLabs, this is obviously my take on it. I think the first thing that sort of I would touch on is it a good choice? Is the Rancor actually a good choice for Black Series HasLab? I'm glad that the Black Series collectors have had the opportunity to get a HasLab to have their chance. We've obviously had two now, and I think it's only fair that they have that opportunity. But it does beg the question, is this the right choice for them, for their product and for their line? I have to say, when the Rancor was first accidentally revealed, conspiracy theorists might say it was deliberate. I immediately I questioned, is this the right thing for a HasLab? It doesn't feel that it has enough for me to warrant being something that is special enough for a HasLab. I don't feel it has enough going for it. It's not like the Crest and the Barge where you have so much to interact with. You have panels that can come off, you have interactive pieces. It can be displayed in a number of different ways. It can be displayed with lots of different figures in lots of different situations. Particularly the Crest can be used in lots of different situations. And I feel that for the Rancor, it feels that it just doesn't. It has those limitations already built into it. I'd be interested, to be honest, to have been a fly on the wall in the Hasbro teams sort of selling when they sold this and when they actually decided on this was the product that we're going to go forward as the Black Series HasLab, because whoever sold it and when they discussed this, they must have looked at, well, what are the selling points of this? And really, when you look at what we've been given throughout this whole campaign, it's big, it's got a long arm span, it's got 900 applications of paint. To me, it doesn't seem enough to really get people interested and really make this thing seem precious enough, I guess, for a HasLab project. And so straight away, I think you sort of question why was this picked? Why was this chosen? I know John and Evan have obviously touched on the fact that we've seen vehicles in the past in Black Series fail, or at least not do very well. And I know that one of the things that the Hasbro team did mention was that this was not going to be a vehicle. And I suspect that's simply because they have realised that it's not going to be something that's widely received in this scale. So Creature seemed perhaps the next best choice. Possibly not, looking at the figures now. But you have to question, is this good value? Is this something that from a HasLab perspective is the right choice from the point of view of what it is and how much it costs? And again, from someone looking in, obviously we have Rancors in the 3.75 line, so it's difficult to put myself in a situation where, would I want a Rancor if I didn't have one? I certainly would. But would I want one knowing that I've now got a number of Rancors? It's difficult to say what would I pay for one that's super articulated. I certainly don't think £350 or £330 in the UK. I don't think that's a good, necessarily a great value. But I guess, like anything, it's about perceived value. I think that what something costs to produce, companies are allowed to make profit on what they make. I'm not knocking Hasbro at all for what they put this up for in terms of the price. And I think sometimes it's perceived value. It comes down to, will someone pay that for it? Do they think it's worth it? I do remember at the time, I think the Crest, there were people that were saying the Crest was expensive. Personally, I think, again, perceived value, for me, I feel like you got your money's worth. I certainly feel I'm getting my money's worth with it. And I guess that's what it comes down to, is do people feel they're getting their money's worth with this? And I think the comments with tiers and the lack of, people feel the support that goes with this Rancor on its own suggests that people aren't perceiving that the value's here. And again, I think that's perhaps goes back to, is this the right choice? It does make me wonder if, when this was again first brought into the line, whether it was really thought through. Because again, you look at what figures interact with this. Yes, Luke Jedi. Yes, Gamorrean Guard. But then you've obviously got Ula and you've got Malakili. And it does beg the question that, why wasn't Malakili there to start with? If Hasbro are trying to make this a world-building product, or make this something at least that could sit as a centerpiece in a display, it at the very least needs to have the figures around it that would interact with it. And to not have that Malakili there from day one is a foul. Ula, we realised there probably are issues out of Hasbro's control on that one. And that's probably a figure that the Black Series will never see. But again, if that's the case, at the point of conception of this idea, should someone not have stood there or spoke up and actually said, this isn't going to work? I guess looking from outside in, there's not so much I can say about the tiers and the products, because most of this I've not paid that much attention to, just simply because it's not something that I'd be interested in picking up. I guess things like the cardboard seems a little bit off, but I kind of feel that with the crest, some of the tiers weren't particularly inspiring. But I think that the importance is that the main element is something that gives the value. I think the tiers should be seen as a bonus, not as something to try and drive collectors. And I think Hasbro releasing those tiers all at once in an attempt to try and get people to back it actually kind of backfired. But actually, it takes away the momentum for any backing anyway. With the crest, it drove people to the next tier, and in fact, the crest was probably going through the tiers quicker than the tiers were being announced. But the idea of the tiers driving that across the whole time span of that project, I think, is an important thing, and it's all about building momentum to the end. And the live stream where Hasbro came out and revealed them all, revealed the Rancor, talked about the size, talked about the draw. Oh, the draw, how great that is. It felt that was it. There was just nothing left. There was nothing left to give that project any kind of momentum. And so again, I'm not sure really that doing what they did was the right thing. They listened to perhaps some of the fans who were calling for those tiers to be revealed. But I don't know if it necessarily worked in the favour of the campaign at the end of the day. So for me, I look at this more as what are the implications for future HasLabs. I worry that the introduction of Malakili towards the end, not even as a tier, but purely thrown in as part of the whole thing. One, an incredibly strange move, but two, I think it just potentially could kill any future HasLabs. I actually do feel that I was actually shocked. I was shocked when I saw it, and I'll be honest, I'm still a bit lost for words on it now, because I just feel that people can hold Hasbro hostage on any future HasLab campaigns, and it's just going to be damaging. And for me, as a 3.75 collector, I want to see future HasLabs shine. I want to see them beat the crest. I want to see them go on. And I'm not sure with the precedent that's been set that will necessarily happen. I think it's important for us to all realise that HasLabs are there to fail. And I think sometimes people are putting a bit too much on the fact that this is going to fail, it's a disaster, it's all wrong. Well, whether or not you agree with multi-billion-dollar companies doing crowdfund projects, which is probably a whole discussion in itself, just to take a crowdfunding project and say, well, look, this is all about creating something that's special, something that's unique, never going to be seen again, and actually wouldn't particularly do well at retail. I think that makes sense. And I think in some ways that it's about taking risks. And I would say with this, Hasbro, I think, have taken a risk. They've looked at a line which hasn't done particularly well with world-building elements in the past. They're attempting to try and do something that's crossed over between the figures that do sell and the world-building aspects that don't do so well. And I think there's a risk there, and I can partly understand why. And if it fails, and at the moment it's heading that way, but if it fails, I don't think it necessarily from Hasbro's perspective should be seen as a negative. I think it's something they could actually pat themselves on the back and say, well, we didn't put tens of thousands of them out to retail to see them all sit there and then go to clearance. So I think failure, it shouldn't be seen negatively if the right conclusions are actually drawn from this. My biggest fear is that perhaps the wrong conclusions will be drawn from it. As a Star Wars collector, I don't feel that this should impact the 3.75 line, but I worry that perhaps the wrong message may be taken for Star Wars HasLabs generally, and I wouldn't want to see that. I think that the right messages need to be taken in that the 3.75 scale is the scale where we want to see the world building. And I think that really that's the sort of conclusion and the lessons that Hasbro perhaps need to learn here. I'm not saying there shouldn't be future Black Series HasLabs, but I think they really need to look hard at what those may or may not be. And I wouldn't really want to be the person to actually make those decisions, because to be honest, sitting here now, I would struggle to really come up with something that I feel would actually be marketable. But I mean, what's the repercussions for the next TVC HasLab? Hopefully there will be one. My concern is a little bit that you may get collectors holding out and sitting on their hands and saying, well, we're going to wait. We're going to wait, and we're going to try and push Hasbro to see just how much more we can get from them, seeing as they seem to be happy to do that. I personally, as a collector, as someone that really wants to see the next HasLab do well, I'm kind of torn, because part of me thinks, yeah, let's hold out, let's push them for more. But really, the passionate 3.75 collector in me wants to just back it day one and push that thing and really show Hasbro that actually 3.75 is where the world building and where the HasLabs and where these type of projects need to sit. So yeah, I did joke the other day, perhaps the second one I'll hold out onto as hostage, but I personally, I think I'd rather just smash it day one, beat the Crest performance, and hope we go from there. So I really hope that I'm not alone in saying that. I hope that other 3.75 collectors feel the same way, in that they would like to show Hasbro that no, we're not going to whine about things, and we're not going to hold out and hold hostage. And actually, we will celebrate, assuming, again, it's the right project, assuming it's something that's a good project. But, we will celebrate the line and be positive and show our support with our wallets. But that's out of everyone's hands, I guess. We'll see what comes up next. I think just to round off, I know Evan had asked for where do we think this is going to end up? What's the predictions? Well, in the time I've been sitting here talking, we're now up to 5,680. So we've literally gained, what's that? One, I think. I to be honest, I know Evan and John are both optimistic in the sense that they feel this is going to be backed. I could eat these words, but I really at this point don't feel this is going to get backed. I know there's a question mark over international backers. There may be all sorts of other things that can get thrown in the pot at the end that we're not aware of. There could be corporations that buy chunks of these that don't get lumped in. I don't know. There is an element that we are not aware of here. But at less than 6,000 with 13 hours to go here, 20 hours-ish, if you want to sort of count the US timescales, I just can't see it doing it. I can't see it pushing through. I could be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. We'll see.
All right, folks, that's it. I was thinking of more thoughts to throw at you guys here at the very end, but you don't need to hear any more from me. That's the SWTVC episode finally addressing the Rancor. It's over. It's done. It's done. Let's move on. Again, condolences to those who wanted it genuinely. And I'm sorry that it didn't back. I do hope, as I said at the top of the show, and as a couple of us have mentioned throughout the course of this episode, that the right lessons are learned here, and that as we move forward, we can see some actionable changes being made to, maybe how HasLabs are approached, or how the Star Wars brand is approached by the team. Are they going to finally learn kind of a little more data on how their consumers collect? Anyway, I feel like there's more episodes worth of stuff to talk about here, but it's all been said. Nothing here is particularly unique. I appreciate you listening. I'm sorry for just kind of rambling at you. Huge thank you to not only my at SWTVC teammates, John, Tyler, Lewis, and Carlo, but everyone out there in the community with whom I've had personally really great conversations about this campaign with over the last month and a half. And again, okay, sorry. It's just a clunky, awkward outro for a very clunky, awkward campaign. So while yes, awkward, it's me stammering over myself, it thematically fits. That's it. That does it for this episode. This long, Rancor-based Black Series-based episode of the SWTVC Podcast. Remember, keep 375 alive. Back TVC. Balance the scales, Hasbro. Finish the 96, and may the Force be with you.